Hi friends, we're back for a new video. Many of you have asked me for it. A video on the vacuum. So the vacuum, what is it? As you just saw, it's the act of sucking in your stomach. Vacuum means vacuum cleaner, stomach vacuum cleaner. And so there you go. It gives the impression of having a super slim waist and all that. But there are plenty of other benefits to it, so we're going to talk about that. So it's true that for many years, bodybuilding has somewhat veered into excess, into the extreme. And so we saw a lot of bodybuilders with big bellies, like pregnant women's bellies. So they had abs, but with a big belly. And as a result, all of this is indeed not only due to the excessive intake, particularly of growth hormones, insulin, and so on, which develop the internal organs. And as a result, it makes their bellies protrude, especially between poses. Very unesthetic. And so since then, the Federation has wanted to somewhat stop all this, let's say, slow it down. And that's also why they created the classic physique category, where so we are limited to a certain weight relative to our height, to precisely avoid the race to the extreme and becoming too enormous, consuming excessively astronomical amounts of food as well, which also relaxes the stomach, the organs, the viscera, and so on. And as a result, I think it's very good because this classic physique category is precisely aimed at trying to rediscover bodybuilding, the bodybuilding of the 70s and 80s, like Frank Zane and all that, also during the era of Arnold and so on. And it's true that at that time, they often did the vacuum pose. It wasn't a mandatory pose, but it was a favorite among those bodybuilders. And so in classic physique now, it's increasingly appreciated. And we see a lot of it at Olympia and all that, this kind of pose. Even though it's not mandatory for now, many do it. And notably, Chris Bumstead, who does it wonderfully as well, and who won the last Mr. Olympia in the classic physique category. So I'm going to explain a little bit about what it involves and why it's interesting to do it. So a few months ago, or even a few weeks ago, I couldn't do it at all because I simply wasn't training. And as a result, it's true that I've been practicing it for several weeks now, about 10 minutes a day. So it's not a huge amount. But there you go. It not only allows you to have a slim waist and maintain it, but also gives the impression of an even more beautiful aesthetic with a nicely slim waist. And so it strengthens the muscle. The transverse muscle, which is the muscle you don't see because we're used to working the abs with crunches, leg raises, etc. So the transverse muscle is not only an internal muscle, and it helps to support the organs, but also to maintain balance in many strength training exercises. Everything like squats, deadlifts, and even in all other exercises, the press, anything that's developed in short to really maintain balance. So it's super important, not only from an aesthetic point of view, but also from a functional point of view. So that's the transverse muscle. It can be worked on especially with core exercises like planks and all that, with elbows on the ground. There are other ways to do it, but it's true that the vacuum really helps to strengthen it a lot. So at first you might feel some internal pain because we're not used to it, but gradually, over time, it will go away. And then you'll get better and better. So at the beginning, it will be quite difficult, but after that, there you go. So how am I going to start? Quite simply, you place me like this here, on a fairly high edge still, so a bit higher than a table. And then I started to completely empty my air. Once the air is emptied, we will try to pull the stomach in as much as possible. And at the same time, we will try to act as if we want to inhale even more, but by blocking it during the inhalation. So as a result, all the air will come here instead of simply going out, and consequently, it will pull the stomach upwards. So it's quite complicated at first. We empty all the air. So at the beginning, we won't start right away with pauses, etc. because it's much harder, of course. So holding pauses, like the classic physical ones here. It's much harder because it requires even more effort due to the contraction efforts in the arms, in the biceps, and then we straighten up. So the act of straightening up is even harder. So that's why being bent over like this, with the back a bit rounded, is much simpler for learning at the start. And we live from the whole East. And we act as if we want to inhale. And so afterwards, I would place my hands like this on my legs with a rounded back as well. So when we don't have support, it's the same, also simpler. Here, come on, friends. I'm going to show you the little exercises I regularly do for the vacuum. And of course, I do it in the morning on an empty stomach. Obviously, it's much simpler. All right, let's go. Angie is doing it very well at the moment. So we're going to learn the vacuum. Are you ready? So if Angie has to leave me alone, maybe I'll manage it. It doesn't exist. Stop. So I have the idea to lift. I'll keep my hand here for now, or there. It's easier by keeping the hands here because it helps a little at the same time. They're the same, we exhale all the air. It's true that it's easier like this too. With the paw, we try to round the back a little upwards, so it helps to push, to pull in at the same time. We start. And then we can do the same, slightly standing, slightly bent. So also like this. Then gradually we straighten up. Friends, try to do these little exercises if you want to simply try to have a slightly slimmer waist, or to keep the waist a bit slimmer too. It helps to strengthen the transverse muscle, the diaphragm as well. It allows you to work on your breathing, to work on simply a bit more on your apnea. So there are plenty of benefits to it, not just aesthetic. And then also, how do I manage to get through it? Because it's true that it's still difficult to maintain on stage, because not only do we have the fatigue from the diet, we have the fatigue from life, from training, from all those months and weeks of preparation. And to maintain the contraction, to maintain the vacuum in addition to the poses. And all that, it's really very complicated, so you have to try to keep it, to hold it for a few seconds. And then I'm going to show you, for example, if I'm going to do the vacuum for a specific pose. I try to immediately reset the abs and not relax between poses. There, it really looks horrible. So here we are on the 21 here. Same for the double biceps. The goal is to try to never relax because the judges see it immediately. So relaxing between poses like that will really give a bad impression, will lose a lot of points. Quite simply, it looks very ugly. So
The goal is really to always try to keep either the vacuum or the abs contracted, never relax, never let the belly stick out. All of that is super important. So there you go. All this work is just a few seconds, a few minutes a day, but it's true that in a few weeks I have still doing it, progressing a lot, maintaining it longer. There you go. It's just a matter of work. Friends, those were my little tips for success. The vacuum and training so as to strengthen this transverse muscle inside. So the aim is not only to have a slim waist and keep it, but also to strengthen balance, especially for all heavy movements. And all that, like squats, deadlifts, leg press, everything that involves lifting and so on. So very useful also for bodybuilding, to be well braced. There you go. It also helps to strengthen the respiratory capacity of your lungs. And it also helps relieve stress because in fact, these breathing exercises, it's a bit like yoga, doing this 10-15 minutes a day. This will allow you to de-stress a bit, work on your mental state, on your breathing. So all of this is actually connected, so it allows you to be a bit calmer, less stressed, which is super important. And then it will also help you relieve back pain in particular, by the fact that you would be more well-born. So there are plenty of advantages anyway, not just aesthetic, as I told you. Well, come on friends, I hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to leave all your comments below. And then subscribe to the channel and activate the little bell so you don't miss anything. Also add me on Instagram and we'll meet again for new videos, especially the Road to Classic Leap series. Bye!